Well, that was a very spirited take on our intro by the Goose Drip Mafia.
The goose drip?
Yeah, Goose Drip.
Ooh.
But the drip means so many different things these days. It's not like a drippy old goose. I think it's like a stylish blingin' goose.
Like the goose has a lot of money.
A lot of golden eggs up its bunda.
Oh.
Yeah.
Willy Wonka style.
Oh, yeah. Daddy, I want a golden goose now.
Well, that was a mighty fine take. Where are they based out of?
Louisiana.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
They put
A lot of things dripping down there.
Oh yeah. They use the goose drippings for the gravy and for the tunes.
Mm, mm, mm.
Lord help us.
So, how has your week been?
It has been good. Started up an old gig that hasn't been happening for many months. The Monday night jazz. So that's been nice to get back to. Been missing playing with the guys I do that with, and it's been good to get back.
This is Monday Night Jazz where?
At Jack's Pizza.
Jack's Pizza in Logan, Utah.
Downtown.
That's a pretty good spot.
Oh yeah, they got really fine beer selection and some tasty pizza.
Mm-hmm. That's some good artwork in there too.
Oh yeah.
I always enjoyed that.
Yeah, they've always had quite an eclectic collection there. It's pretty cool, and the murals they've had done are sweet. So.
Hell yeah. My week has just been exhausting. It's been really busy.
Yeah,
so I'm not the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So you've had quite the schedule this week.
Oh yeah. Usually I'm left to my own artsy devices, so I get to stay up late like I normally would, and wake up late. Which I guess that's something we could discuss real quick. Is I feel like there's sleep shaming in this country. I know I said we weren't going to get all political, but
this isn't political. This is a real issue.
All I know is if I'm left to my own accord, I kind of naturally creep towards staying awake till 3 a.m. And then I wake up around 11 or 12. Yeah. And if you break that down, that's about 8 to 9 hours of sleep. It's not like I'm doing a crazy amount of sleep or like not sleeping enough. And it's just if I'm following my own nature, I'm pretty nocturnal.
Yeah, it's a different slice of the day, but still 8 hours. That's totally cool. I'm a similar way. And I think for me, it's from, like, there's not often in a weekend where I'm not out playing somewhere. I don't get home till, like, midnight, 1 or 2. So I usually am in bed by 3 for sure. But, I definitely tend to stay up a little later and wake up around 9, 10, which is definitely later than most people would they'd be surprised at that. Or, yeah, like you said, sleep shame you. Unfortunate.
Let me ask you this. It's kind of like a which came first, the goose or the egg kind of question. Do you think we're a little more nocturnal because of our artistic ways? Or do you just kind of become like that because you're artistic?
I'm not sure. I mean, as a kid, I always had a tendency to stay up and, read a book super late too. I've just always been that way.
Yeah,
So I guess it's probably that might have led to the other. That might have just how we are and how we think makes us want to stay up and ponder later, and that's just kind of an
could
artsy
be.
thing to do.
I think something that would be worth asking a morning person that we have on at some point is how they feel about nighttime. If they're like, no, I love doing things at night. It's just that I love being awake in the morning, or I just don't feel right if I stay up late. For me, staying up late once the sun goes down and things kind of quiet down, it's just way easier for me to be creative and get creative and yeah, like you're saying, read a book and imagine it, and your imagination is stimulated.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It's just that's always where when I get my best work done and I'm the most motivated is about 9 p.m. till whatever I crash.
Yeah, for sure. But I think there's a lot of people that are that way.
Yep. But they shall remain nameless. But I had a couple people in my life like, look at you,
Slob.
getting like waking up at 11 or 12. How ridiculous. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. What work were you getting done at 2 in the morning last night? Oh yeah, so you were sleeping.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Exactly. Still getting stuff done. Do it on your own time, however you like. And when I go out on like backpacking trips, I do tend to, get up earlier, try to get up right before the sun rises and stuff to get on the trail. There's like afternoon thunderstorms. So if there's like a reason to get
Mm-hmm.
up, I'll do it and whatever. But yeah, my current schedule, I can do that. I can plan my day how I want to. So I'm gonna do it like that.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I'm not trying to start a civil war here between morning people and night people. I'm not like trying to form a militia of night people to kidnap the day person governor or anything.
Listen, Red Eyes.
Yeah. Listen here. This is our country. But like I said, no politics. The only reason I'm bringing that up is just been very tired this week, even though I've gotten plenty of sleep. Just something about waking up early. I get the work done and get whatever things over that I need to have over. But I mean, you can even tell by the way I'm formulating words right now. I'm just like, the word's good.
Yeah.
So that being said, this is kind of just a winging it episode. We're just gonna kind of go over some things that we kind of had like just kind of tucked away or just like whatever kind of comes to mind.
Yeah.
Um, I think we were going to discuss a little bit of music, so we'll kind of save that just for a minute. And before we get into it, I'll go ahead and go over some of the films I've been watching. In October, it's one of my favorite times of the year. I like to just try and watch some kind of Halloween vibe movie every day that I can.
Nice.
And it's just like, I don't know, it's really turned into one of my favorite traditions. And so I kind of just, simply called it October Movie Fest. And so I'm going to pull up what movies I've watched this week. And we'll do a quick recommend or don't bother with it.
Also, you try to find new ones as well as some
It's a mixture.
favorites.
It's like some classics, and then it's like, oh, this thing I've heard about, never seen it. But I'm certainly picky. Like, if somebody's like, dude, you need to watch this, but I watched the trailer and I'm like, I know the director and I kind of know the vibe. I'm like, I'm not gonna watch that. Like, I definitely know the scary movies or the Halloween type movies that I'm just not gonna be that into.
Yeah.
So let me get to the top of this list with what I started with. And then you just let me know if you've seen these movies or if you have any thoughts on them. The
Nope.
first movie I started off the month with was Sleepy Hollow. by Tim Burton. You ever catch that one?
How old is that one? Is that a...
Mm, that might have been like in the 90s. Like, I remember as a little kid watching the trailer in the theater, and it was like real. It was pretty spooky. It was effective. And I always
Huh.
liked the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So I was ready for it. But then it was rated R. I was too young. Grew up in Utah. Didn't see it for a while.
Uh,
That one was released in 1999.
yeah, I don't think I've seen that one.
Pretty good. Christopher Walken is the Headless Horseman. And if
Nice.
you're like, wait a minute, how are you going to do a character that doesn't have a head and it's Christopher Walken? It gets explained. Things happen.
Word.
You get to see him. Christina Ricci's in it, looking pretty hot. I get to say that, even though she's a bit younger, but I was younger than her. So,
Yeah.
I think you can nostalgically look back and be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have
Uh,
to put that one on my watch list.
That one is a strong recommend. I guess out of a scale of 5 pumpkins, I'd give it 3 ghosts.
Nice.
The next movie was Fright Night, which is a movie from 1985. I love 80s horror film, and I hadn't seen this one before. And I gotta tell you, it's really awesome 80s vibes and really great vampire story. So I was loving that one. It starts off pretty cheesy, and you're like, oh boy. And then kind of about halfway through, it stays cheesy, but like really good melty cheese.
Nice.
So on a scale of 1 Frankenstein, it's basically the whole Frankenstein, just maybe missing one bolt or something.
Oh damn. Well, that's a strong recommend.
Oh yeah, that one. We'll see as I'm going down this list, but that might be my favorite one I've watched so far this month.
Where was that one? Did you find that on just online randomly or?
Yeah, I guess that's something we could do. Sleepy Hollow was on Netflix. Fright Night was on Amazon Prime.
Ah, okay.
The next one I watched was The Cabin in the Woods. Have you seen that?
I don't think I've seen that one either.
That one's a classic. I'd seen it before. And the whole plot and setup of what it is like really what makes it.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not going to get that deep into what it's about, just that it really is good at kind of being meta and looking at horror films and scary movies and kind of reimagining why they are the way they are.
I see.
And so that's a very strong recommend. That is, so if the rating system is 1 Cabin in the Woods, I would say it's as good as like 6 Dead Virgins.
Huh.
Yeah, so that's a very good one.
I'm gonna have to. I don't know which order to watch these all in. I should have just started with you.
Yeah, that's true. I can definitely be more in touch about, yeah, I think this is what I'm going to be doing. And we definitely should do that. Does Netflix do the shared watch thing yet?
I think they're the only ones that don't right now. So,
Really?
yep.
I feel like I noticed it on something recently.
Hulu,
Like, you can do this now. Oh, yeah.
Hulu and Amazon. Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, get your shit together, Netflix.
Yeah. Come on, watch party.
Next movie. This one I questioned about whether I should watch it. But the thing was, is I had started the first part of it really late in September. And I was like, man, I really want to finish that movie. So the movie is Prometheus.
Ah.
And that's definitely a creepy, scary type movie, but it's very much sci-fi too.
Yeah.
So I was kind of trying to decide, it's like, am I just going with scariness, or am I going with just Halloween vibes? And I wouldn't say Prometheus really has any kind of Halloween vibes unless scary stuff is Halloween to you.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that being said, Prometheus is an awesome movie. I've seen it plenty of times. I know it got a lot of flack when it first came out because it like had plot holes to folks or like was too convenient in some areas, but I think for the allegory they're going for and you know the whole concept itself is really cool and interesting. So I've always loved that movie. So it might be my favorite out of all these movies, but in terms of being very Halloween vibe,
Yeah,
I don't give it that many pumpkins.
I get you.
But like a lot of squirming aliens inside your chest.
Oh boy. Are all the other ones like Halloween, like it's the Halloween time in them, or
No,
okay?
but I think it's kind of the way I was picturing it is, it's like spooky, supernatural stuff, or like vampires, Frankenstein, zombies.
Yeah, okay.
And that was the other thing too. I was like looking at Silence of the Lambs, and I was like, "Is this a Halloween movie?" And I'm like, "I don't think it is." And so
Yeah,
there's been all these lists of like really awesome serial killer movies, like Zodiac and Silence of the Lambs, and man, there's another one, but yeah, they're like, no, that's like psychological and kind of real,
yeah.
and
I
so
can
I might
trip.
just do that in November, just
Yeah,
like get dark and be like, well, this is the reality.
just like the psychological thrillers.
Yeah, like psychopathic, narcissistic, self-absorbed people. I think it'll just really fit in November.
Yeah, that seems about
Well, there's
right.
a lot of there's an election happening. Anyway,
Uh,
we're not going to
there
talk about
is.
that. We're going to move on.
Oh,
And then I didn't watch one last night, so the last one I watched was the day before, and that was Jordan Peele's Us.
I want to see that one. I want to see all of these, but
Yeah,
I wanted to see that one.
that one is very good. I will say, when I first saw it, I had only seen it once. I was like, maybe I like it more than Get Out, which was the other movie that Jordan
Uh
Peele
huh.
did. But after rewatching it, I was like, nah, I like Get Out more, just a little bit. That being said, they're both really awesome movies. Jordan Peele's just been a really exciting newer director to watch, and obviously, for those that may not know, Jordan Peele is one of two people that made Key and Peele, which was
Mm-hmm.
the show on Comedy Central that was like really funny. So when he switched over to
Hilarious.
making like these really good horror films, it was like, wow, like what a transition.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that one is like out of a bunch of paper chain people, it's like 23 of them.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
I
So, all of those I recommend. None were disappointing. Um, I
what
guess, yeah.
what you
Fright
got?
Night would probably be my favorite
Nice.
for all the encompassing elements. It's very Halloween vibe. It's got the funness of like old movies. Um,
Ah,
something about 80s music and just like creepy vampires trying to be seductive. It works really well.
they were really hitting the synthesizers hard, and it's fun.
Oh yeah.
What you got coming down the pipe this week? You got any movies on the docket ready to go?
Um there is only certain films that I try to watch every year. Not in any particular moment, but every time an October rolls around, I'm like, all right, I need to watch The Witch, which is a modern classic.
Mm-hmm.
I need to watch The Shining, which is a classic. Um, definitely try to tackle some Stephen King stuff. Um, and Babadook. I try to catch that every
Oh,
October.
nice. I think we
Yeah.
watched that one
Oh, we
October.
did. Mommy.
Yeah, that was
It's just,
that's quite the movie.
oh yeah,
It made me feel things.
that kid is terrifying.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, you know what?
Parenthood.
All of it.
So yeah, that's where we're at.
Well, nice.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you. You had mentioned the Key and Peele. I watched a movie. It's been about a month now, but Keanu.
Yeah, we're the one with the cat.
Yeah, have you seen that?
I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, good lord! Yeah, you got to check that one out. It's gonna be right up your alley.
Yep.
You know, with like the cat and stuff. But no, it's hilarious.
Cats,
Good
comedy.
movie.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely be checking that out. I think when it came out, I was just not in the position to be able to see it, and then I kind of just it passed me by.
I did not. I totally missed it. Like it was on. It was on TV in a hotel room, and it's like, oh, this movie's awesome. I was like, what is this? I've never even heard about
Yeah.
it.
I think that is
Great.
the thing that is relatable between comedies and horror movies is they can get really harsh ratings and criticism. And my theory on that is both those types of films create an involuntary reaction. So, obviously comedies, they're getting you to laugh, and horror is trying to get you scared, like to freak out a little bit.
Yep.
And so that can be such a subjective thing from person to person that, it's
And
like, dude, zombies just bug me, man. They don't scare me. They're just annoying. And yet somebody else could be like, oh, no, dude, there's just something about them. I don't know what it is. Yeah, and
yeah.
it's the same thing like with comedy. If you throw a chimp in any kind of human clothing in a movie, I'm gonna light up. I'm gonna smile. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be like, oh, wait a minute, where's this movie going?
Who's that little guy?
Yeah, hey, little fella. Oh Lord, he's coming.
You got a Hawaiian shirt on. Look at him.
Yep.
Yeah. Uh,
So yeah, it's just they. I think with Keanu, I remember it came out and people are like, this is Rotten Tomatoes 29% or something.
what the?
That actually might be worth checking out.
Oh man, them's people wrong.
Yeah, and it's just I think it's because they're like I don't know, looking for like a deeper metaphor or something. It's like, no, this was made to be silly and funny, and
It
they're like, well, I
mission
didn't find it
accomplished.
funny, and you're like, well, all right,
Yeah. Well,
like it just doesn't work for you.
it's all dependent on the day too. You know, I watched the first time I saw Quarantine. Me and one of my buddies were just in the right mindset, and it was like the scariest movie I've ever seen. And I watched it again. I was like, eh.
Yeah,
You know, it's
yeah,
just it goes up and down. Same with The Ring. I remember The Ring. It scared me. I was pretty young too, but yeah, that movie got me good. I kind of like to watch it now. Just doesn't scare me at all anymore. But
yeah.
it's really not that
Would you
scary of a movie.
say when you were mentioning it, you talking about the old original one or the new one?
uh, I I hardly remember the old one. I did see the new one, but
I would say that the old one is way scarier than the new one.
yeah,
The new one's like they're trying to do a comedy out of it, which I think the first part they did a pretty good job because the kids are kind of silly and funny in the book.
yeah,
So it's like the humor kind of landed better, but in the second one, it's just like it really kind of annoyed me. And I love that book, so I'll rewatch it.
hmm,
And every time I rewatch that second part, I'm like, man, I kind of hate this.
yeah.
So I don't know, something about Tim Curry. It's like you don't need to have a giant weird shaped clown with like thousands of teeth. It's like you just got to get Tim Curry
Mhm.
in clown
And
makeup
face,
and get
yep.
him to just talk. And it's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But yeah, that terrified me. That's
Well,
why I ended up reading the book because my way of dealing with things that freak me out is just to learn about them, kind of take their power away. And I read the book and was like, oh, holy shit, this is really good. And it was the only book that's ever been able to like disturb me. I would say it scared me, but just more in the sense of like I'd read it before going to bed. And then you kind of close the book, set it down, and then it's just dark in your room, and you're like, ugh.
Jeez.
I think maybe I'll just read another chapter because I don't really want to go to bed right now.
Yeah. I definitely need to read that book.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I agree. Have you read any Stephen King?
Oh man, very few. I can't even remember the one I read now. Can't think of the name, but it's been a while. But I think that's the first one I'm going to read.
Been a while. Yeah, I highly recommend it. I'm always looking for people that have read it as well to kind of do a deep dive into it.
Yeah.
I don't know how we can do this since we're in two different states. I would normally have you slap my wrist for getting this wrong. Keanu actually did a bit better than what I said.
Oh,
It has a 77 tomato meter percentage. So
good.
Rotten Tomatoes thought it was good, but the audience is 55%, which I guess is like rotten popcorn.
Wow.
But that's still really high for rotten popcorn. So,
Yeah.
my bad. But I just remember it coming and going, and like people didn't talk about it much. And I remember some people being like, I didn't like it. So maybe I mixed it up with something else.
I think you'll pick up what they're putting down.
No, I think so. Just like the chimp rule, a cat, like, all right, what's that little guy doing?
Oh yeah, yeah. This is kind of that kitty is adorable, and it's the star of the show.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
Well, all right. So those are your horror movies. Feel free to write us at fakkoshka@gmail.com if you have any horror movie suggestions or thoughts on the films that we've watched already. And we will read that on the air if it's worthwhile. Mm-hmm. So we will jump into that again next week. So on that note, let's maybe get into a little bit of music talk.
That sounds good.
Yeah. First things first, rest in peace, Eddie Vedder. Eddie Van Halen.
I would slap you if I was there.
You know what's funny? That's an actual slip up. I wasn't trying to make a joke. I did that the other day too. Yeah. Eddie Vedder. What did I just do?
I just never put the Eddie on there. He's just always been Van Halen to me.
Yeah. I guess that I was kind of thinking about that the other day as I was reading up on him. I was just like, he just is just Eddie Van Halen. Like, I'm sure he changed his name to that, right? Or is that his real name?
I have no idea, actually.
Yeah, so it's like, I was like, so did the band... yeah, this is Eddie's band, and just calling it Van Halen.
I mean, that is a cool name. And
it is.
It could be a name. So...
I think growing up, I always thought it was like an old... car model or something like that, like a Coupe de Ville. Yeah, like a Van Halen, like sleek and cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to get us a ride, but I'm no good at Van Halen. Yeah.
So I'll be honest, I wasn't a huge Van Halen fan. Over the last 5 years or so, I've actually warmed up to him considerably. And, throwing them on from time to time. But, I mean, there's still plenty of albums that I didn't get that into. Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely a David Lee Roth guy.
Oh.
Like, he's the singer that I mess around with. Like,
for sure.
I'm blanking on the other guy's name.
Sammy Hagar,
right. And, I'm going to go through and try to listen to more of it just to kind of comprehend it. I remember that's was really valuable for me with David Bowie. That was another artist that I'd always enjoyed kind of peripherally. And then he passed away and was like, well, let me actually try to understand this guy. And same deal with Prince. Just a lot of these great artists that were not of my era. And... yeah, he was obviously like an amazing guitar player. Really influenced tons of people.
Yeah, it was my first one of my first CDs. My buddy, this is old school. He had
Hmm.
like a machine that could copy like CDs. Like you put a blank
Oh
one in
yeah,
one side, put a CD in the other. Like
yeah.
not even on the computer. And he made me a copy of Beatles Abbey Road and like Van Halen Greatest Hits that started out with Eruption and it had
Okay.
Running with the Devil and just Jump and some awesome songs. I ain't talking about love, and man, I used to just rock that CD multiple times a day. And it's funny because I loved it. I loved that CD, but I never like that has nothing to do with me playing guitar. I'll be completely honest. Like I was never like, oh man, I want to be like Van Halen.
Yeah,
Like at that
that's the
point,
reason I do what I do.
I wasn't gonna be a guitar player. You know, wasn't gonna be a guitar player as like a pursuit as a profession until college, you know? It was just for
Yeah,
fun until I was like, oh, actually, I might be able to like do this. Um,
keep rolling with it.
so it didn't actually get me started playing guitar, but I definitely, it's in there because I listened to it so much that all his sound and his licks and how he played were definitely in my psyche somewhere. So
Yeah.
he
What was the first instrument you played?
oh, we all had to start on piano in
Yeah,
our
it's a
family.
pretty common thing.
Yep.
Same deal in my family.
Turn 8, get on the piano.
Yeah. And what was a guitar that you were drawn to? Like beyond that, or was it banjo
Actually, yeah,
first?
it was banjo first and accordion. Like the two most annoying instruments, save the bagpipes.
You were like, I can save them. I
Uh,
know how to use them properly.
Indeed, I was like, they're cool. I love the banjo. I've always loved the banjo. So, and
Yeah.
the accordion too. And for dang good reason. Anybody who thinks the accordion is any kind of a shitty instrument, it's just I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, there's people that play that thing so amazingly. It's cool
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
So yeah, guitar didn't really. I started picking that up in like late, maybe eighth, ninth, no, ninth grade. I was in jazz band. That's when
Mm-hmm.
I was starting to play a little more guitar, and then kind of did a little bit here and there. Then right out of high school, I started taking lessons and stuff. That's where it really kicked off.
There you
Yeah,
go.
and then I got in up on campus. I took a guitar ensemble class, and I got in there, and I was like, "Wow, I'm the best guitar player in here." And I was a
Yeah.
chemistry major, so I was like, "Okay,
Putting
time to do
chemistry
something
on the
else."
fretboard, man.
So,
Who was the first guitar player that you're like, oh, that's kind of what I want to do?
um, that's the thing. I have not ever like been chasing anybody as a guitar player, in any or musician really. I've always just kind of
There
just
wasn't like a sound or a
yeah, it's just
certain
like kind of
band that
been.
you were like, oh, that's the kind of stuff I want to make.
I just love it all. Just always want to make music, and I'd say if I had to, the guitar player that's like I saw live and heard him play, I was like I want to be that guy. Would be Al Di Meola from Return to Forever.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I
he was a
always
great
loved his
player.
stuff. Yeah, and and you'd listen to him, and you could totally hear the Van Halen licks in his playing. And so jumping back to that for a sec, Van Halen
Yeah.
definitely had an influence on like all the people I love and me, and just every guitar playing in general. He actually like the whole tapping thing, eruption and all that. I think it was that song or he was just
Yeah.
known when he first came out to like turn away from the audience and no one would figure out what he was doing because he like
Yeah.
kind of was the first one to really be doing that way he did it. So
He was
it was
well known for
interesting.
popularizing the tapping guitar solo technique, allowing rapid arpeggios to be played with two hands on the fretboard.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's the thing. I watched a really cool video of him playing just like a couple of years ago and doing that. And he went into Eruption a little bit and just doing some other stuff. He actually did a really cool thing where he was just tremoloing the first string with his pick. And he was
mm-hmm.
playing all these cool bass lines with his left hand, just hammering them down. It was a
Yeah,
pretty cool sound. I'd never heard anybody do that before. So I was
for
like, oh,
sure.
that's cool. It still had something innovative that I hadn't seen.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, I'm sure there was guitar players before him that tapped or did some variation of it.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I definitely when I first started playing bass, um, if people listen to how I play now, they might be like, "Oh, he's just trying to do a Les Claypool thing." But in general, when I was getting into music, it was new metal stuff.
Yeah.
So I always liked the bass of Korn. That was filthy, just doing the slap clickety clackety bass.
Yeah.
And then I liked Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit, and he actually did kind of tapping guitar stuff, but it was more like a rhythmic thing. And he apparently got that from Les Claypool.
Oh, nice.
And then I'm sure Les Claypool, it's like doing all the tapping stuff he can do. I wouldn't be surprised if a little bit of Eddie Van Halen was in that, you know?
Yeah, the right hand stuff for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It totally
So I don't know.
sounds like what he was doing.
Yeah. And I mean, that's definitely an important thing to point out, I think, especially this day and age where you can kind of just pull up a YouTube video and how do you do that weird little trick? And you
Yeah.
can see it and practice it over and over and boom. Like
I
there's this scratch slide thing that Gojira does a lot.
yeah.
And I was like, what is that? And I just was able to look it up. I'm like, oh, that's how you do it. But it's like when Eddie Van Halen came out, it's like he was blowing people's minds.
I had to go get a ticket and try to get up close to see him, and then he turned away from the stage.
Yeah.
God damn it.
From what I was reading, apparently he got a lot more open with it as he got older, like
Yeah.
doing, workshops and this is how I do what I do and all that stuff. And I would say another interesting thing I read was a story from Quincy Jones, who was the producer for Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And he called up Eddie Van Halen to see if he would come in and work on Michael Jackson's Thriller album.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, we can see if they could do that. But he's been a lot more into keyboards lately. And I thought that was kind of interesting that he was just like, yeah, I'm amazing at the guitar. I'm going to kind of, what about these keyboards?
Go
I'm
do
going to do
this
some
for a
stuff with
while.
that. And so he didn't believe it was Quincy Jones when he called a bunch of times. Like, no way, man. It's like, get out of here. But he eventually showed up at the studio, laid down, I think it was one take, the solo on Beat It.
Yep.
And I think he played on Thriller, but I'm not like the song itself. But I'm not entirely sure about that one. But I did find that interesting. I didn't know that until reading up on him the last couple of days.
Yeah.
I was like, awesome.
Yeah, he's got a really interesting story. I read a few articles about the Beat It recording too, and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very
Oh, and
influential guy.
speaking of Limp Bizkit, do you remember that story I read you?
Which one?
Where when Wes Borland left Limp Bizkit, they were looking for different guitar players, and I guess they had reached out to Eddie Van Halen,
Oh yeah.
and so he came over. And I'm just paraphrasing because it's been a minute since I read the story, but he came over, brought his equipment, and jammed with them, and he apparently like this is ridiculous. Fred Durst and his buddies are just hanging around smoking pot while I play. So he's just like, I'm out of here. And, he left his stuff there for a minute.
Oh yeah.
And then he apparently came up with like camo boots and gear up onto Fred Durst's property. I think he had a weapon. He's like, where's my equipment, man? And Fred's just like, it's inside. Like,
Come get it.
yeah, it's never going to change. It's just, yeah, it was a hilarious story. It's like, oh man, Eddie Van Halen coming up and threatening Fred Durst.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I guess on that note, rest in peace, Edward Ludwig Van Halen. So it looks like that was his name. It's Dutch.
There you go. I mean, 65 is pretty old for how hard that guy partied. Like that, he smoked cigarettes probably right out of the womb, and
Yeah.
just like drinking all kinds of other drugs. He smoked till like the end, as far as I know. So like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it was
hard
throat
on him.
cancer that got him, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so
So, it sucks.
still too young, but it seemed like it might have been able to be preventable.
Yeah, I think he squeezed a good amount of life out of his years.
I think so. If I think about my own existence, sure, it's creepy to think about it all coming to a close, but if you really think about it, like, yeah, do I want to go till I'm like that shaky old man that's like 100? Like, do I want to go that far, or do I just want to live my life to the fullest? Get to
Yeah,
70, maybe.
I was I was kind of thinking about that the other day randomly, and I was like, I really don't want anyone to have to wipe my ass. I really
Yeah,
just
no.
that's the point that I don't want to get to. I
I might
really
want to have people do other things with it. I don't want them to wipe it. That's my
no,
job.
exactly. Like if I am incapable of doing that, I'm like, I really don't want it to be like an unfortunate injury or something that makes it the case for like a couple of months it'll get better. I'm just saying it gets to the point where it's like, okay, from now on, that's about the time I'd probably like to go.
Yeah. And I mean, man, I try to picture like I would like to like get married and have a family for love and because I want to, not because I'm like worried about dying alone. Because that's just
hmm
totally a thing. Like I picture, like, oh man, I just have a family that just I had one just because you're kind of supposed to or some cultural nonsense,
Yep.
and then I'm just old, and it's just like I guess we'll go see Grandpa. Like, like I don't ever want to live that. I either
Yeah.
want to be like an awesome grandpa, be close to my family, or just do this like, nope, I kind of run solo.
Yeah.
Try to hook up where I can, keep my friends close, work on my artwork, and just run it, run it dry.
Yep. Keep along.
Yep,
Screw them societal pressures. You do what you want.
absolutely. So yeah, once again, rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen.
Indeed.
I recommend everybody go listen to. I think it is just the self-titled one. That record's awesome. I definitely know that. That has
Mhm.
Eruption on it. That has "Running with the Devil," which is my
Yeah.
personal favorite Van Halen song.
That's a good tune.
Yeah.
You know, it also came of his passing as I was reading. I watched an interview with Steve Lukather, a session musician. Also started Toto, was in the guitar player and one of the singers in Toto. And I kind
Okay.
of went down a rabbit hole on his stuff because he's all the other guitars on Beat It. Anything that's not the solo is him, and so
Oh,
he kind of had to copy Van Halen's tone a little bit, so it didn't sound too different. And the guy
yeah.
is amazing. He played with everybody. I went down this just rabbit hole of Steve Lukather things
Yeah.
after because I watched the thing to hear about the story with Van Halen. Then I was like, I knew who Steve Lukather was. I just never really dug into it. And he's got a group called Los Lobotomies that's really good. Just cool stuff. Great, great guitar player. So good. Just
Los
insane.
Lobotomies.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Awesome.
So yeah, it opened Van Halen's door closing. Opened the window of Steve Lukather into my life. So
Opened into Toto. Let me here's a random weird music question.
I like it.
This could maybe even this might be a theme of a future project we're working on, but we could come back to it in that if once we figure it all out. What is your opinion on scooped mids with bass guitar?
Scooped mids, you say?
Yeah, it was a term that kept popping up when I was looking up Ryan Martini's bass tone. That is the
Ah,
bass player from Soften the Glare and Mudvayne. And I
yeah.
was like, man, this guy's tone is so good. So I kind of was lightly researching it. And, it goes to this forum with a bunch of bass players of varying knowledge and skill, probably.
Wildly varying.
Yeah. But they're like, see, he's just got this crazy attack, man. It's crazy attack, but it's mostly scoop mids and not much else. And it's like, oh yeah, scoop mids, and I know people are scared of scoop mids, but they're really good. And nobody really said exactly what it is. I know what it is in terms of what it does with the dials on your amp. You're just kind of doing that little scoop in the middle where your low and your high is high,
Yeah.
and then your mids just kind of go down, and it like does a little valley V shape. Because
Yeah,
a lot
so
of yeah,
that is exactly what it is. It, if you look at the EQ, like a full graphic EQ that has like every frequency band as its own little thing,
there's
it just
usually
looks like there's a
5 of
big
them,
scoop in
right?
the middle. Well, I'm talking like on the big studio ones with like
Oh, okay,
24, 48 of them, you know. You'll
okay,
see a
yeah,
big scoop right in the middle. And so if your amp has like 3 of them, it would just mean take the middle one and turn it down and leave the other
yeah,
ones where they're at. So the reason the guy said why is somebody scared of it is because that's kind of where your clarity comes through on bass. The mids are where
mm-hmm,
kind of the punch comes and all the actual note comes out. So
right.
it does make sense. His bass tone does kind of have just a really heavy punch, but all that really high clacky,
Kind of a growl to it.
yeah. So it does make sense. I I don't know. I wouldn't even say. I'd say it's probably more like boosting the low and high more than scooping the mids, which is still the same thing. It still looks like an ice cream scoop taken out
Mm-hmm,
of the the sound. But I
right.
think it'd probably be more something like that. You wouldn't want to like turn the mids down too much because that is where the meat is. Just boost up the
Well,
bass, boost up the high a little. Get
let
that
me hit
attack.
you. Let me hit you with 2 things. One, this is just for people's information. Korn Fieldy, the bass player that I mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
his whole thing was to turn the low and the high all the way up and completely turn down the mids.
So there you go.
So there he gets
Scoop
that
the hell out of the
slappy,
mids.
clicky whateverness,
Yep.
but then the punch is like, "Brrr." And
Yeah.
then those 7-string guitars just take care of all that space in between.
That makes
And
sense.
yeah, and but as you learn bass and you're learning your own things, you're like, what is this shit? Like, I think I should add that Fieldy's an interesting bass player, but I wouldn't say like crazy good. He's pretty straightforward. So as you grow with the instrument, to like each their own. But I was like, no, I can't do it like that.
Yeah.
You want to have like you're saying, it's that clarity. Like I notice when the mids go up, you can hear the notes better, and the melody can kind of come in. And so one of the things that also came up on that message board was that if you had 5 dials on your amplifier, what one person did was 50 low, 100 on the next mid, 50 on the middle mid, 100 on the next mid, and then 50 on high. You have any opinions on that?
That would probably be more where the basses get where you'd get the tones like that you would want out of the bass. So yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense with the
interesting.
5 ones because the super high, like the ultra high, is like the nails on a chalkboard, like right in your ear stuff. So you want to be
Yeah.
real careful messing with that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, it
So
was interesting because I've been recording with my band Gamma and our buddy Shockey. He plays guitar in that, and we're just trying to learn all about mixing and where to have all the frequencies at. And it's been a process learning all that stuff. It's like seems endless.
yeah, I it's kind of it's interesting you mentioned that thing about Corn. I'm kind of wondering if that's the same thing with Soften the Glare. If their guitar players like using a lower tuning to kind of fill in some of that too, because
Hmm.
he sounds pretty low down.
Mm-hmm.
Good, yeah. So
Well, and that was what one person was going into is And it makes me wonder how much people actually ever think about this. I don't think a lot of up and coming bands do, just because it's something you learn a little bit later. But like, oh, I can turn this section of my bass down because that guitar is going to occupy a lot of that frequency. So actually,
Yeah,
like adjusting everything in relation to who you're playing with, I thought that
yeah,
was kind of interesting.
big. That's a big thing, If you got your bass to sound exactly like the Soften the Glare sound to your ears, it probably wouldn't sound anything like his bass actually sounds because you're hearing it with the whole album and stuff and all mixed. So
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely is a big part of it. Like guitar, we when we actually get in the studio and stuff, they end up EQing out like most of the like bottom end of the guitar to because it gets too muddy. So it's all
Hmm.
just the really high stuff to you just get the notes in there and let everything else kind of fill in the low end because you don't need it on the album, but you can
Yeah.
kind of still feel it live.
Yeah. Well, and that's been an interesting thing, is because for me, I've tried to think of ways to kind of make a sound distinction between Gamma and Fakoshka, the band you and I are in.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of been a thing. Is like, well, Fakoshka's heavier than Gamma. It's a lot more. There's a lot more metal elements, I guess is the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like I've been like, so one thing I've consciously decided is like, well, I'll go to drop D with Fakoshka and stay in standard with Gamma. It's just a tiny little thing.
Yeah.
But I've always thought Fakoshka would be cool if you like did a 7 string guitar. See what we could do with that. What are your thoughts on that?
That'd be fun. I haven't played too many of them. I played one in like a talent show in high school. We did a metal song and we played 7 strings, and I
Okay.
haven't played one since. We've talked
Yeah.
about doing it in Swamp Donkey too a little bit, playing some 7 strings. So someday.
Yeah. No, it's just definitely okay. Yeah, just the next Fakoshka record, which will come out eventually.
Indeed.
Just a matter of trying to get together and get it tightened up and ready to go. But it's like, yeah, what if we just went like heavy on it? Because I
That
think
would
that
be
was kind of a
sweet.
nice contrast. Is our first record's a lot more avant-garde and like weird, and I feel like over the years, a lot of the songwriting I've done is it's a lot more about like, is this a catchy tune? Does it have a good hook? So coming
Yeah.
back to Fakochka stuff, it's like a little hookier or maybe a little more traditionally structured, but like having some good chunky heaviness to it.
Yeah, and some still just some stank.
Yep. And I mean, somebody listening to this that hasn't listened to Fakochka, they might be like, "Oh, you're just gonna do some polished radio rock now?" Like, no, that's definitely not what I mean.
Nope.
I don't know if we could write a radio song if our lives depended on it. Like maybe we could. Yeah, actually we could, but like we wouldn't be happy.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah. It's still gonna be weird stuff. But yeah, anyway, I guess we kind of went off on that, but that was just a tiny little. It's the tone. It's the constant search for the tone. Shocky's going through it right now, trying to get the right guitar tones he wants for the Gamma Pa songs. I'm
Yeah.
like, how can I make my bass just a little punchier but clear when it's recorded?
Well, that's the
All those
ultimate
things.
problem. All the tones you get in the room are so much harder to get to come out on your recording. And
Yeah.
the it's funny, the answer for your personal tone is it's in your fingers. I'm not talking to you specifically. I'm just
Right.
talking to the world. I'm saying
Hey.
if you're sitting there like, man, I'm trying all these pedals and all these amps and guitars and I can't get the tone. It's your fingers. It's not any of that. And if it's in the studio, you didn't spend enough money. You have to spend
Yeah.
thousands of dollars on gear, mics, preamps, and plugins, and that's how it sounds good. That's what it takes. You have to get the good stuff to get the really high quality sound. Um,
Hmm.
so
I remember when we recorded our first album, one of our best songs live is Heroin Sunrise. and I really don't like the version we recorded. And I can look back on it with hindsight, and I'm like, oh, that's because I wanted this like little kind of scratchy delay effect on it that I got from my Digitech pedal.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't quite understand how to like adjust gains properly, and well, oddly enough, the bass, mids, and treble. So when we plugged that Digitech into whatever we were recording with, the tone of it was just way down. There was like almost no bass kick because whenever we had the Digitech plugged into a bass amp, it would just give the punch you needed from the amp.
Yeah.
So live, it had this bright, nice bite to it. And then when we recorded it, it's just like weak. Like, me, 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 me.
Yeah.
I was like, like I still listen to it. I'm just like, man.
And it's same with the guitar too, man. A drop D guitar when you're in person, it'll hit you in the chest a little bit.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't come out on a record the same.
Yep.
So, and I'm not of the mind to just keep tuning my guitar lower and lower. And
Sure.
if I'm gonna do that, I'm just gonna buy a 7-string, and then
Yeah.
just buy an 8-string, and then just play bass.
Yep. I think some people definitely get lost going down that road, and I think there's probably some fun to be had there. I know the band Sonic Youth, they were all about doing weird tunings on their instruments. And I think what they would do is they just learn something with kind of like a general blues structure, and then they just mess with the tuning and play it exactly in the same spot, and just be surprised by like, oh, yeah, it sounds like that when we do it. It's just like
Yeah.
such a weird roundabout way of getting there, but
Yeah, you could just like learn, the instrument. And
yeah, it was like,
learn how
oh,
to
that was like
play all
5
those
steps
notes.
up, and maybe, oh, it's only a half step down on the next string up or something, you know?
Yeah, there's
Excuse
definitely
me.
some interesting tunings. There's some ideas with the tunings that I think are interesting, but um, I've never been one to mess around with it too much. I just the bottom string goes down to D. That's about it. And on banjo, you have to retune.
Yeah.
If I didn't have to, I wouldn't use a capo on that either. But sometimes you got to.
Off the top of your head, and that raises another interesting question now that you just said it. Off the top of your head, what has been the most interesting messing with tuning song or band that you've heard?
Um, man, I don't even know. Probably like solo guitar players. There's some really cool solo fingerstyle guitar players that do really weird tunings that are really cool.
Yeah.
So that would be probably what I would go with.
You know who I always wondered if he did odd tuning, but I bet you it's probably he's just good and makes weird note choices, is the guitar player from Meshuggah. And when he always has those jazzy, weird little solos. I'm like, oh, that's such a weird note choice. I always wondered if he just did weird stuff like that at all, or if he's just like, nope, I know what notes I want. It's
Yeah.
probably the latter.
Yep. You're getting that nice, the nasty notes are. And it's kind of funny. Your your ear has evolved with time, like with the whole race's ear has. So we don't get as offended by weird notes as we used to. Like,
Yeah.
there was a riot when Stravinsky released "The Rite of Spring" when they first performed that, and yeah, you listen to it now, you're like, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's nice.
Was it Antifa?
Well,
They didn't like the note choices.
yeah, they were just angry about the notes. They're like, those are devil's notes, demon notes.
Isn't there like a devil's chord or something like that?
The devil's interval, yeah.
Interval.
The,
What is
the,
that again?
the flat 5, the
Flat five.
tritone, the diabolus in musica.
Mother of God.
Yeah, it's the Fakoshka chord. All the chord I hit like all the time in Fakoshka.
Awesome.
Yeah. I don't use a power chord. I use that one.
When you were writing guitar to Fakoshka stuff, were you like, oh yeah, I'm using that a lot? Or did it just naturally like, oh wow, I'm using that a lot?
Oh, I just have always liked the sound of it. It's really
Fair enough.
nasty, so I'm in.
And
So,
my next question that kind of popped up from some of the stuff you were saying, how important is a capo really?
like I said, it depends on the genre. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, banjo and maybe some guitar, and that's about it for getting away with using a capo.
So let me be.
Banjo,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say like banjo is because you're in a key. Like you strum a banjo and it's a chord, and
Yeah.
so you have a certain key limitations to just in that. So to like play just how the banjo sounds, you have to have it capoed because the high string has to be in the key too. So you actually have to use two capos on a banjo. There's that single high string and then the lower four.
Hmm.
And then on guitar, it's kind of the same way. If you want to use, if you're playing like bluegrass, just those the bluegrass chords have a certain sound, and so
Okay.
you'd want to have that. So if you're going to play in a weird tuning, like weird key, you're just going to probably just want to capo and play your usual chords
Yeah.
instead of trying to make the inner chords work. But if you're like playing jazz or something, anything like that, you should just know the chords, jump around.
Right. I guess that was kind of what I was wondering because you'll see the singer songwriter on the guitar, and he's like,
Yep,
"This next one's about my heart," and he puts on the capo.
and that
And
makes
as a
sense.
bassist, I've always like, why do they do that? Like, can't they just move their hand up a couple steps? Like, and I'll admit I don't understand it.
Well,
Like,
so
I don't know.
the guitar has these open chords, and you play it's a chord, and there's only you have like two fingers down, and the rest of the strings are open. It has a
Right.
certain nice sound, and it's easy to play.
And it
But
resonates nicely or whatever.
yeah, and
Okay.
so I'm guessing that person probably can't sing in that key, so they have to raise up the capo a little bit, and so they can still
Huh.
play the same chords that they learned the song with, but they can sing it easier. That's
Oh,
usually
so it's like adjustment for the voice.
yeah, that's why.
Interesting. Yeah, I never knew
Yeah,
that.
there you go.
Cause yeah, it's just like, yeah, if the song's in that key, just like move your hand.
Exactly. That's what
But
I've always said, but it makes sense for the chords sound better like that on acoustic guitar usually. So,
yeah. Well, and the thing I've really gotten into, I don't know exactly what the technique's called. It's a thing that Les Claypool does, where he like kind of rhythmically strums down with his fingernails, like brushes down. It's kind of like a flamenco move, I think.
Raschiato.
Raschiato. Is that what it
Yeah.
is? Yeah, I've started to do that a lot, and I really like maybe on my D string moving the note around, but then having the G string stay open. And then it just
Yeah.
resonates the whole time. It makes kind of a nice tonality to when you're like strumming something.
Yeah.
Kind of keeps stuff in the air like wow, wow, wow a little bit rather than jing, jing, jing or
You,
whatever.
you hear that a lot in like the emo guitar. You'll hear like they'll just move a chord around, but you'll hear like the bottom string and the top string ringing open like the whole time.
Huh.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Everything's like ringing below the same notes. My
Yeah.
eyes, they're hurting. Yeah.
My eyes. Boo, boo, boo. No, yeah. And I learned it I think I did it naturally, but then I leaned into it when I learned that Deftones did it. I was like, oh, that's kind of where they get those like tones from certain
Yeah.
songs, and I'm like, oh, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And they definitely have some emo-y stylings to some of the stuff they do, so that makes
I
sense.
think I think that one spot. Hopefully you'll be able to know what I'm talking about. But there's a one spot on some song on Kitty Massage Parlor where I hit that one weird note. And it kind of like no, it's on the other one. It's on the live one where the notes kind of just hit against each other. Kind of makes this weird. And that's that. Having an open string next to a fretted note that's just like a little bit away. It's a cool sound.
This is the part where you go.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah. So that's like the two guitar, like just being like one note apart. Sounds really funky.
Oh, that's the end of Billy Mitchell. Is it?
Yeah,
Is that something you're doing in that?
yeah.
Okay,
So that's how that
cool.
sound comes out. Dissonance used to be
Yeah.
the devil, and now everybody's like, "Yeah, give me that."
Give me that devil. Let's butt chug the devil.
That's a good album.
Yeah, I have to apologize. We're talking about butt chugging a lot at work today for some reason.
Huh, nice.
Do you remember that story? It actually started with that one YouTube video, which I think either you or our buddy Dan showed us. It's the lawyer giving the press conference, like the guy at the frat house that was
Oh
butt
yeah, yeah,
chugging.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we were
that's a good
talking
one.
about that, and then I think this might be a real story. Once again, write us if you can correct me further. But I remember hearing a story where this couple went on a honeymoon and they were trying to be a little freaky and try some new stuff. So the wife put some wine in her husband's ass, and he ended up being allergic to something that was in that wine, and it killed him.
It was the first time he drank his wine, and he drank it with
I
his
don't,
ass.
I can't remember like what if it was a particular type of wine or like what, or just like, yeah, there's so many questions. But I
Yeah, so
remember just
many.
reading the story, and I'm like, oh, mother, maybe she poisoned the wine. Maybe she wanted to be rid of him. I don't know.
Yeah,
But I never
they
thought
won't.
about her wanting to kill him until like later, as I got older and realized how most marriages go. I remember reading it when I was younger and just being like, "Oh my god, how sad! She killed her one true love with wine in his ass."
Well, she was like, they won't check it for poison if I put it in his ass.
Nobody wants to check there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of became a running theme. We were talking about the ending of Game of Thrones, and one of our coworkers hadn't seen it. Like I watched it up until like the last two episodes. What even happened? And I'm like, oh well, Jon Snow and uh, Daenerys, they were hooking up, and Daenerys put some wine in his asshole. She's like, what?
Good lord.
Oh my god! I'm like, no, it's just that thing we've been talking about all day. Like, oh right.
Meow.
Anyways, we've actually, I guess that scoop in the mids convo went a little longer than I anticipated.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll have to save some of those articles for next time around. But
that sounds good.
before we check out, is there any kind of a weird news story or anything you got for me?
Oh yeah, we got one here.
Okay.
So I know we've had some local ones, so everybody's gonna get what's going on in Cache Valley here.
Just gonna start piecing the puzzle together.
Yeah, so this one is Mystery Train makes late night runs through south end of Cache Valley.
Ooh.
So I like it. I like the this article. This starts one sentence in the first paragraph. Call it the Phantom Train.
Yeah.
It's like it's
I
getting
have to
right to it.
interrupt real quick since we've been doing band talk.
Yeah.
My first band, Naughty Apparel, Jeff and I really danced around calling it Bad Train for a
Oh
long
yeah.
time. Yep.
That's a
And
pretty cool name.
I we really liked it. We eventually just like, I don't know, maybe not, I don't know. We just kind of backed away, but yeah,
Bad Train. Sounds yeah, it sounds like a Motorhead song too.
a little bit, yeah. I think maybe that's what it was. We were doing something a little more metal, and it changed a little bit when we got into Naughty Apparel, even though that's a pretty metal band too. But anyway, so Mystery Train, Phantom Train.
Yeah. So apparently this last Saturday, 2 o'clock in the morning, a train comes running through Logan. And it's just this huge one. And it's like going really slow and it's like really long. And I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you don't now because you have a much better train where you are now, but we
True.
get a train comes through town like once, like It's only in the daylight hours, and I swear it's on like Thursdays. Like you can hear it like every couple of days. You hear a train sometime in the afternoon, and it goes from Hiram to Lewiston. That's it. So
Hmm.
just a little, 40-mile run maybe.
A little jaunt.
Yeah. And so uh,
Yeah.
apparently there's an empty train sitting out on the tracks. It's a half-mile long, and that's the one. And then it left on Sunday at midnight. So everybody is like, called the newspaper and stuff because they're like, "What is this train? Like, why is it going in the middle of the night?" And it's like super long. And so the
Mm-hmm.
Herald Journal reached out to the Union Pacific and tried to figure it out. And
Yeah.
apparently it's hauling rock to kind of do some repairs, like they dump the rock to like build up around some track somewhere.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think that's all it is. It's like a repair train going around fixing stuff. Uh, but kind of caused a little stir. That's how boring this town is. A
Yeah.
weird train
How
comes
awesome
through.
would
It's
it
like,
be if
wait a
they
minute.
called the union or whatever, and they're like, "What are you talking about? There's no train there."
They actually kind of said that. That is
Oh, really?
they were like, "We're pretty sure it's this one." Like that's probably this one. They didn't give like a definitive answer because like apparently they can't. It's like if it's like a customer of theirs, they can't give any info on it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, they were kind of just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's this train that has like some rock in it to fix stuff. It's probably that one. So
We might
there you
have to
go.
make our '80s tribute movie on Phantom Train.
Yeah, call
That's
it the
pretty cool.
Phantom Train.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it'd be really
think.
spooky if like it was people like went up to it and it like disappeared after like some crossing
Yeah.
or a guy
Kind
fell
of.
on the tracks and it just went through him.
Yeah. It's kind of like Sleepy Hollow vibes.
Yeah,
Instead of a headless horseman, it's just Ghost Train.
cabooseless locomotive.
The spooky caboose.
Ooh, that's a good band name.
Oh yeah. I think they're gonna do our theme song next week.
Okay, let's hit them up.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I like it. I guess all I would say is, as you were telling me that, I was just thinking, like, man, there was a time when like trains were like the future transportation. It's
And
like,
we shouldn't have ever let that change. They should still be how we get around mostly, I think.
well, obviously newer trains and not that old school stuff. Like
Yeah.
we've seen those light rails. Like there's so many cool proposed ideas of like a national light rail system. It's like
Oh
you
yeah.
could get around the country like easy.
Anybody who's been to London and used the tube, like for how many people that moves around, that is a fine
China,
system. Yeah.
yeah,
And just like it works great. And it would be awesome if we could get that where you could take, you take the little subway around your local place, get on the light rail to go national, and you can go to an airport and fly international. That could all be public transportation.
look here, buddy. I'm not sharing a spooky caboose with a bunch of different strangers.
I don't want
I'm
none
gonna
of
haunt my
these.
own truck
Yeah,
and
you
spew
stay away from
CO2
my
into the air.
caboose. Exactly. It's a
Yeah,
diesel. It needs to warm up for 20 minutes before I drive it.
and yeah, like once again, feel free to write us and tell us how you disagree with this. I don't think this is politics because I don't think climate change is a political thing. I think it's a
No, it is not.
fact. It's a science thing that we got to figure out, and it's that old meme you've probably seen thrown around, or rephrased. But it's like, oh, if we end up being wrong about all this climate change stuff for some crazy reason, oops, we made nature better and air cleaner, and
Oh, yeah.
oh
Come,
no.
come, come take a bite of our air in the middle of winter here in Cache Valley, and
Yeah,
you'll be all about wanting to clean up the air. It's horrible.
that's what I'm saying, man. And that's the thing, is I totally understand like America's love of the motor vehicle, the car or the truck. Like
Yeah.
it's something very cool and American about that. I mean, I know I'm one to speak for having an expired driver's license for years, but I've never been much of a car guy, but believe it or not, there's a part of me that's just like, no, like cars are awesome and
They
some
spend a
old
lot of money
school.
wanting you to think that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just turned it into fun and an activity. If you're going into the city, if you're going to work, take a train, take a bus, take this or that, and let's invest in making those nicer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it isn't like graffiti filled nasty bus with one bad wheel. Some guy screaming about the ghosts in his head. There's a spooky caboose in my brain.
If you just imagine how much money everybody spends on their car, payments and gas and repairs,
Yeah.
and not even like a quarter of what you spend on that you paid in taxes, and everybody paid that, our public transportation would be amazing. There would be a bus every 10 minutes. It would
Hmm.
be clean, it would be fast, and if there was no other cars on the road, then things could be flying.
Yeah, if you're in downtown, oh, maybe we should all just walk around.
Imagine that. They could have even those little electric scooters to rent,
Hmm.
stuff like that.
This crazy
It's
thing called bicycles.
Yeah, those are fun. And again, I would not want to be on one right now. Because like the drivers
Yeah,
around here are scary to drive with in a car. But if there was no
exactly.
drivers, if everybody was, using the buses and also biking, it'd be much, much safer.
But yeah, imagine that if we just cut it down that much, but then it's like, hey, Margaret, how about we take the kids, we drive out to the beach, we get the car out of the garage. I'm gonna wheel it out, make sure it's all tuned up, and we'll get to hear that engine. She's like, ooh, I love the engine and the vibration, and then yeah, it's a fun thing. It's like a cool thing to do. Bust out the car. We're gonna go drive around this weekend.
Yeah, they could be all classy,
Yeah,
cool, old. Still
it could
just
be.
still
Yeah.
throw away all the late cars and get back all the cool ones from like the 40s and 50s.
Oh yeah, soup them up just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Good sound systems. It
Yeah.
could be like when planes first came out and people would dress up to get on the plane.
Hell
Everybody's in
yeah.
like a suit and a summer dress, and let's get into the minivan, sweetie.
And bring back the Concorde.
Yeah. All right.
Uh,
I don't think any of that was political. And if that's
no.
political for you, then you're an ass.
And you can write us and so we can make fun of you
And we'll
at
write back
Fakoshka.
like, "Dear Mr. Ass, you're an ass. Somebody should put wine in you and you die because you're allergic."
Uh, true that.
All right. So I
Well,
guess it's been a good long episode, man.
yeah, that was a pretty good just ramble on episode.
Yeah.
So we did kind of tease that we were talking about another segment or another show under the Fakoshka network.
Okay.
So,
I said project, but you're going in on show.
project.
All right.
I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Let's see what the people do. So, if you have any fun musical questions, you can send them in, and we can send them into fakoshka@gmail.com or any other anything we talked about as usual. But that is
Yeah.
something we've kind of been tossing around, just having a little musical show. So,
Well, if you had noticed, I think I know a fair amount about music, but I was like, what's scooped mids? What's a capo for? What's this? And who had all the answers? It was your boy Kellen. I would define you as a bit of an expert. Would you argue with that?
no, I kind of do it a
What you
lot. I
it's
spend a
what you
lot of
studied.
time with all this stuff. Yep.
It's your profession.
Yeah,
This
I do it
isn't
all
yeah.
the time.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to be in a band with you, but like yeah, you know your stuff. It's like
Yeah.
you got a lot of knowledge that we could share with people. So it's not just two dudes that are like metalheads trying to break down music. You definitely got music history, music theory, music knowledge.
Anything.
Yeah.
Guitar amps, guitar tones,
Yeah.
pedals,
I mean, you
any of that
repair
stuff.
amps too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, see?
So all kinds of stuff.
And I'll come along for the ride because I think I have an interesting perspective on musical things and perhaps good questions. So yeah, just start hitting us with some musical themes or discussions or questions, and we might get that podcast rolling pretty soon.
That'd be fun.
Awesome.
And who knows, we might do a few more little chats about it. Might become a spin-off a little later. We'll see what happens. But either case, send us stuff.
Well, that's certainly possible. There was 2 music articles we didn't even get to this time. I thought we were going to, but we just didn't. So
we be chatting.
All right, then. Well, it's been a lovely episode number 7.
Indeed.
Lucky number 7. All right.
Times.
Have a wonderful October movie fest, and we'll talk more about that next week. And only 3 more weeks until we have a complete political episode.
Yay, we get to let all the demons out.
Let them out. All right. Y'all have a good evening, a good day, wherever you are listening to this.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to The Jacob Wayne Show. If you would like to contact us, please write us at fogkoshka@gmail.com. That is FAKOSHKA@gmail.com. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Simply search The Jacob Wayne Show and it should pop right up. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. Please write us. It helps add content to the show and makes the show even better for you, the listener. Thanks for tuning in.